Hey everybody, this is Meyer, and in this video what we're going to be doing is creating this sub pad sound to sit underneath the main lead here in Icarus. Take a listen to what it sounds like. I'm going to start it here at bar 8 or 9 so you can hear what happens when the filter opens. And this is the sub pad by itself. Cool. All right, so to go ahead and get started, what I'm going to do is just kind of organize things a little bit. We're just going to call this lead, and I'm going to give it a color and give it an icon here. And I'm going to delete all this other stuff too, just because I don't need it. And I'm also going to rename this pattern. Once again, it's just good to stay organized here. So we're going to call this lead. Cool. And with that, what I'm going to do is I am going to duplicate this channel, just clone it. And this is going to be our sub pad. And we can just give this kind of an icon and a color. And I'm going to duplicate this again, just so I kind of have an init patch here for the future. So we'll have that. But what we need to do is, of course, initialize the patch here. And what this is going to do is this is going to sit underneath the main lead. So this here is the lead's cutoff, and what I want to do is have something that's going to be just playing kind of constant notes. So what I'm going to do is just follow these bass notes here, so it's very easy. And then kind of like this. Select all this stuff, hold down shift, click and drag, and now we can have this. Now this is going to be the sound that we're working with, and at this point I could put it on its own pattern, but actually, yeah, let me just do that now. So I'm going to create a new pattern, call this sub pad, give it the same color that we're going to be working with, I guess, and paste this on here. So now that we have this, this will be sitting right here under the main lead, and we can auto name these guys too, so that we have what we expect. Now let's go ahead and take a listen. We want to create the sound. Now this is a very basic sound, and this is just going to have that sub content here for this sort of breakdown section. And we want to make sure we're in the right octave. I actually think this is okay, but I like doing it this way where everything's kind of the same. You don't have to be transposing the Midi. And I think that's where we're going to want it. So what I'm going to do is go over to the Super Saw mode, choose Super Saw 5, and we're going to adjust the spread. And actually, I may want this to be stereo. So if I go to Hyper Saw, we can do Hyper Stereo 6. Once again, I don't need a ton of voices, but I need enough to kind of give this a little bit of meat. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And then for this filter, I do like this butter filter a lot, but maybe I'll choose this Curtis filter. I really like this Curtis 12 dB per octave. It's very gentle. And once again, we don't want to have any of this mid. This dynamic bass is kind of nice. I may have this up at 3 dB. Let's hear it without this lead. I'm going to route this lead to the mixer by hitting Command L, and I'm going to do the same for the sub pad. Maybe a little bit attack and release. What I'm going to do is Tools, copy this oscillator, oscillator 2, and once again, we're going to be using these basic waveforms. I'm going to set this to stereo right now, so it's just 2 voices, and I want to play around with this waveform just to see if I can kind of boost it a little bit. Yeah, I think having this square wave right in the middle, so I'm setting this to mono, actually really helps kind of bolster the sound. This is really supporting that mid frequency right down the middle. So adding a little bit of resonance on the filter, and I'm going to set this to saturate. Which is really helping. Now I'm going to move over to the effects section. The first thing I'm going to do is under stereo imaging, I'm going to use stereo width. And the reason for this is I may want to not have this be too wide, so I can actually adjust the width, but kind of push it down to the center a little bit. So this will be fully mono. Yeah, I actually think that sounds pretty good. You don't get control over the stereo panning of each oscillator, so sometimes I will do this overall if I think the sound is going a little bit too wide. Alternatively, if I'm using this in a big project, I might use something like the Ozone Imager, which I think is fantastic for this sort of thing. Often I find myself boosting it when I'm doing something like that for the whole lead stack, but here we don't need to do this. And maybe I'll add a little bit of this plate reverb. I don't think it needs it necessarily, but it may be nice to have. So I'm going to set this to 15% and bring the frequency down so it's very dark. And to give the sound a little bit of movement, I'm going to modulate the filter cutoff with LFO3, and let's just bring this speed up a little bit. It's very subtle, but just making the sound a little bit more interesting. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the second filter as a high pass filter. And what I want to do with this is automate this with the resonance. And basically, as I move the mod wheel up, there might be a time. I want to do something like this. Now, we may want to really boost this. Yeah, something like that. So what I'm going to do, once again, I want this cutoff to be way below anything that would be audible. Map this to here, and then let's go ahead and set this maximum value as we did before. Kind of where it disappears. Yeah, I'm happy with where this sound is. Yeah, cool. Let's keep this. We're going to do the same thing we did before. So we're going to move this mod wheel or this macro, tools, last tweet, create automation clip. And what I'm going to do here is as this is playing underneath the lead, right before the lead comes in, I want to sort of cut it out and then bring it back in very quickly. So what this is going to do is kind of cut out the lows and then sweep right back in for this kind of moment where the lead's open all the way. So this is going to build tension to bar 17. Let's go ahead and listen to this with everything, with the lead and the sub pad together. Comes. And maybe I just want it to snap like this. So listening to this without the lead, kind of like that. You can kind of hear it come in. Once again, with a sound like this, it doesn't need to be all that complicated, but we really need to make sure we have that support under the lead. Hopefully you can hear the difference when the lead's in here without this. And then with the sub pad. Awesome. In the next video, what we'll do is we'll add a kick, and then we will add a sub bass for the section that we have where the drop comes.